Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to the USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call. Please stay on topic. The number is 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line, 605-477-3249. Hour number 1 is with Dr. Margaret in Spain. Hour number 2 is me flying solo. And I'm going to talk about my book, not to promote it. I've got nothing to sell. I shut down my PayPal account for taking payments, so I can't sell you anything. I don't want to. But I'll be talking about what I wrote, how I live, the way I do things, tips and tricks from Vincent Finelli. That's what my book is really about. And let's see. Oh, and today I'd like to finish the which one of our instructors, your instructors, has been banned from Walmart. Which one of us do you think literally was banned from returning to Walmart? So if you'd like to let us know, I'd appreciate hearing from you. And then sometime during hour number 2, I'll tell you. Welcome, Dr. Margaret.
Well, welcome to you, Vincent. How are things going today?
Really well. You know, Dr. Margaret, I had a question for you before we get started, and I hope it doesn't derail us. But, you know, I've been thinking about people in the United States, and you travel back and forth, so you are the person to answer this. Are people in Spain as mean, as egocentric, as unhappy as they are in America?
Okay, you're talking about two large conglomerates, very mixed. I must say that here, okay, it's better here. Now, the youth are becoming quite likely to run you over in their car without thinking about it. You know, there is this road rage, this intolerance, this me first. But where I live, there are more older people than younger. However, the youngers are starting to beat up the olders. So it's a problem. In the States, it's much more dangerous because you're armed, whether or not it's appropriate, legal in the States. I keep thinking about your wife and having her 357. I almost blew my foot off with the 357 the first time my friend took me out to shoot. I didn't realize what that thing could do. And now I saw on Facebook they're sending these little hair combs that have we used to call them rat tail combs. There's the comb on one end and then a long tail, and it was to fix our hair. Well, now you can pull out the tail, and there's a knife hidden in the comb. So, and that's in the States. So I wish you could go where people are happier, where things are more settled, but here it is changing. They do like the violent movies. They do walk across the street looking at their stupid cell phones. They violate your space. They steal things. I think about your calf almost being taken the other day, and you had to settle it, showing firearms. What a way to live. But people here have lived together for centuries. It's not as bad. They have worked it out. They have systems. I'm going to maybe talk about a market I went to last weekend, and just how they don't exist in the States and how they've existed here for hundreds of years, and it's coordinated. The States is big, and it's so mixed. And the language difference. Just think of any problem you can, and it's happening where you are. I'm just fortunate to be in a place in which I feel safer. I don't have to be. You see, when I lived in the States, I was always on guard. I know how to fight. I have studied the martial arts, a variety of them. I wonder why your daughter wasn't in the karate classes, too. I think all women should be.
She was. She took second in the state. Yeah. And she took, I think, fifth in the nationals.
Women have to become competent. What if you're walking alone? But in the States, I was always on guard, looking in all directions and ready for anything. And I'm a fast reactor, and I'm a quick reader. Here, I can walk and just walk and listen to the wind in the trees blowing the leaves and watch the ripples on the pond and tune into nature without having to be constantly on guard. I think I became a nervous wreck. Well, no, I learned how to handle it, but I was always on guard. And here I still have on guard on hold. Okay, and I do have a dog next to me all the time, and they're normally on guard. But I don't have to be so prepared to fight and defend myself at any second. It's much different. I feel at peace, finally. I was raised to be a fighter, you know?
And that's why I asked you, because you are the resident expert, the resident or the corresponding expert on what it's like in both locations, and there aren't many people who are in your position who are on worldwide radio, and that's why I asked. And you mentioned language, and I'm thinking about, yo, bro. I mean, where'd that come from? Where did sup? I guess that's supposed to mean, so what is up? Sup? Yite. Which is yes, all right. I mean, where did this come from? Our language has devolved. It's disintegrating in front of our eyes. We don't know how to write.
No, we can't write because we just write like my friends. I go insane. We're talking about PhDs, professional university people, even over here, who write me a message with the letter U and then the letter R, or the letter R and then the letter U, are you something? And my heart breaks. I write back in correct, grammatically structured, excellent English. I refused to debase myself. I am furious with the destruction of the language. They can kill me defending the language. You know, it's extremely important. Now let me give you a different idea. I've been a university professor for more than 35 years in more than 2 countries. I have to tolerate and adapt to what I would consider unacceptable language and other behavior in order to get to where they are. You're not going to pull it over on me. I'm going to understand you. Go ahead and talk funny. I'm going to get it, and then we're going to start talking better. I taught in prisons for 12 years. I couldn't go in there criticizing their English. I better understand what they're saying right at the moment because they were talking about me. So, and I've just, and another thing, you know, one reason I came to Spain, because about 20 years ago I heard on the news, by 2010, 50% of the U.S. population will be speaking Spanish. And I thought, oh my God, I have a PhD and I only speak one language. I better get with the program. And I had major fear of speaking, but I ended up teaching it for 30 years. I wasn't going to learn Spanish. Are you kidding me? I got over here and I was mute for 3 years because I refused to make mistakes speaking in imperfect Spanish. And then I got over it. So I guess, like I said last time, maybe you have to be hard-headed. That's what I told my cousin. He said, how did you love her? It's amazing how far you've gotten and how well you've done. I said, you just have to be hard-headed. Because I had many, many strikes against me and very, very little help, very little support. So now we're off track already. What do you want to talk about? I'm kidding.
Margaret, it is delightful broadcasting with you. What would you like to tell us, teach us, educate us about today?
Well, people have asked me, what is my teaching method? And I said, it's very simple. I repeat, I repeat, I repeat, and then I push. It's like when I was a swimming teacher. I'll repeat, I'll give you many repetitions of how we're going to dive into the pool from the edge. And if you don't do it after 5 times, I'm pushing you. So today I'm going to repeat about how are people doing on their food preparation. Has anybody made an assessment of the food in the pantry or the storage unit? Has anybody started bringing home an extra can or container or package or a bottle of something that will be used to put into the storage supply room? Has anybody had a meeting with their family or even lightly brushed the topic about what if, we don't have, what are we going to cook? We don't have any electricity today. So I'm going to repeat that because it's something I want. I want people to at least know their own situation. I don't care about what your neighbor's doing. What are you doing? And what is your family doing? I'm very concerned about the children. I think the children should be essentially involved in this planning process. They're going to be the ones who scream the most, and they're going to be the ones who are going to want to eat the most. So that's one thing I want to repeat. I think it is essential that people make an assessment and an analysis, and I'm going to say an accounting sheet, of their food supplies, food and water. If we were in a class, I would ask, turn in your paper to me today. Oh, but before that, each of y'all are going to get up and talk, make a little presentation on what's your storage situation. So that's number one. But you see, with radio, there's no way to check. Everyone has to do it. They might now listen and eat a whole pecan pie. So let me flip. I have about 20 pages. I know we might get to about half one page. But I was listening to a program recently. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, only I'd like to say that we've got just a couple seconds left in this segment. We'll be right back with Dr. Margaret in Spain. And what if no electricity? Are you ready? We'll be right back. Dr. Margaret's with us live in Spain. We're talking about food preparation. Dr. Margaret, you're talking about extra cans. Bring some home, start a family meeting, talk to your family about what they like to eat, what we should prepare as a family, those kinds of things. I totally agree with you. And I was wondering, what is your percentage estimate as to how many families would be prepared to survive one full month without going shopping? What percentage of the families do you think could pull that off without going out for food?
In the States, if you're one of the extremely wealthy, somebody already has that taken care of. If you're not in that, 1% or whatever, for whom I have worked, and I understand how they live, but if you're in the 99%, disagreeing a little bit with Sheban's estimate, I would say 99% can't do it for a month. No.
You know, it's interesting. That's exactly the number I came up with. And I didn't want to say it to predispose you to, what I was thinking, but that is exactly it. I believe 99% are not prepared to survive a month. Can you imagine?
No. And guess what? Guess what the ex-president of Italy told the people of the towns in Italy that were negatively affected by a volcano that went off a couple of years ago? He made a public announcement, well, y'all just pretend like you're camping for a week. Okay? That was a recommendation. Hurricanes in Florida, et cetera, the mayor, the governor, whatever, they were saying, have your food for a week. I have something here I heard from a woman named Celeste, who is an ex-FEMA experiment specialist, ex-FEMA trained, worked for DHS, and her specialty was on planning out worst-case scenarios. Just going to say 2 or 3 words. She has a site called shepherdsheart.com, and people can go to that. I'm not going to repeat almost anything she said except for her 6 major warnings. The first one, well, there are a few. This is going to be an extremely cold winter. She suggests having clothing for all extremes regarding of your location because they're predicting fire and ice and changes of from plus 100 degrees to minus 100 degrees, regardless of where you are. That's one. Shelter, extreme temperatures, which require adequate clothing. Then she goes to seeds and liquids, says secure your water source and secure your food sources. And then she says take a long-term approach, and that's what I want to talk about right now. Well, she also said think outside the box, which our 99% are not doing. Let me go to the time approach. I have a 1-week plan, a 1-month plan, a 3-month plan, or longer term. Who knows what we're going to see when we open the door and go outside? Will we be able to plant? We don't know. So, and I also think about those who are not capable, the elderly, the young, the old, the handicapped, the immobile, in the United States you have to drive 2 hours to get somewhere to go to a market maybe. Anyway, this is the thing. And what if you're a single mother with several kids and low income and 2 jobs? Okay, so you're going to think about canning? No. Go for 1 week, get your 1-week supply of already prepared foods. As you all have mentioned before, canned soups, canned beans. You can think about canned meat products, canned fish products, canned fruit products, then we have all the nuts. But buy things for a week, immediately sustainable. That will get you for the first week as we try to see what's happening and how long do we have to go. In that first week, you can also start planting seeds and getting things going indoors. But forget about, cooking, preparation, conservation. Buy things that can open the can in the dark without an electric can opener.
Hold that thought. We're going into a break. Dr. Margaret said a lot when she said that you need to have goods that you can open in the dark without an electric can opener. Please continue. Well,
and now we are continuing to talk about a week with no electricity. So that's why we're in the dark with no electric can opener. But also there will be no cooking unless you happen to have a camp stove, which I do, with fuel canisters, which I do, and butane, which I do, and a fireplace, which I do. But people who live in cities and multi-story whatevers and modern homes don't have any of that. So let's just keep thinking, what are we going to eat for a week with no electricity and no real cooking? And I hate to think of what if you have babies in the house or sick people. But, so let me just say a few things. You're not going to be making potato salad. You're not going to be cooking large batches of rice and big pots of beans. If you want rice or you need things to give the children and even big people like me, I'm not big, but I'm older, there are things today that are available that are fixed and ready and in the package and will stay there for months. If you want rice, there are things called rice cakes. Nice little thick rice cakes. People here give them to their infants and young children to munch on. I eat them myself. If you want to break them up to have little rice grains, you can do that because they're made of whole rice grains. You can buy them made out of corn. You can buy them made out of quinoa. You can have crackers of all sorts. No electricity means no fridge and no freezer. Do we need milk? Well, I think there's something called powdered milk. And I have cans of evaporated milk and condensed milk. Now, they say adults don't need milk, but it's part of the American culture. So there are things like that which we had as children, and we take them out on the boat or whatever. So these things are available in an already prepared form, and you add water. You better have some water. But you can have things that make people generally satisfied with foods that look like what they're used to eating, but you don't need to be doing cooking. Get some candles. Candles can be used to heat some things. Now, you need a lot of candles, and don't get any with fragrances. But, and here I have the luxury where the people make the candles out of the natural beeswax. Thank you so much. What a joy. But anyway, candles will get you through a lot. But be careful. And I'm thinking, in New York and a 30-story whatever, candles, I don't know. All I can think about is my local situation, what I would do, what I can be responsible for. But in terms of thinking of 1 week with no electricity, which means no fridge, no freezer, no ice cream, no cold milk, no sliced ham, no lots of things, no ice, how are you going to survive? So again, and I said this last time, in our culture we've gotten past the point where everybody has to do their own individual conservation, as they do in the Amanas. I used to visit there an awful lot, and as they do in Utah, the Mormons. But just get ready for a week, and don't forget coffee. You're going to want some coffee? What about sugar? All of these things, the little sweetnesses, prepare the people that they're not going to have everything that they want. What are those most important things? But am I making myself clear on some ideas about how to have immediately usable, low preparation food available and drinks, liquid, for 1 week? I really think it's important to be practical, step by step. After a week, if the electricity comes on and there's gasoline flowing at the gas stations and we can move around and get our meds, well then, all the better. Otherwise, the recommendations are going to be a bit more difficult because now, it's going to be about now really starting to think to begin or to continue to produce your own foods. As I said, in that first week of electricity, you can start planting seeds. Alfalfa seeds, chia seeds, bean sprouts, all kinds of lentils, all kinds of things sprout within a few days. They can be eaten with nothing or with some vinegar or some olive oil or oils. That's a salad, or you can survive on it. There are so many seeds and beans that we can plant, and they'll be up in, again, a few days. And if you leave them there, there's even more time. But don't wait. Begin today. Do something. Start. I have to say this. I had a family member, a slightly extended family, and she was in university and used to tell me about how they would kind of live. So they would go to her friend's house and Mama was there, and at midnight they'd get hungry, so they'd all get in the car and go to Walmart and buy as many pies as they wanted and eat them all at once. You know, I was flabbergasted. How can this be? This is a person that I know. It's my family. What are you doing? So all that's going to be gone. I can't imagine the screaming and the weeping and gnashing of teeth that's going to go on. So get prepared, edible, drinkable foods. Now, have it done by, what's today, Friday? Have it done by Monday. Hello.
Oh, I totally agree. So we've got a weekend, and you can meet with the family tonight for dinner. You can say, tell you what, guys, special event tonight. We're all going to eat together. And no cell phones, no radio, no television, just us around the table with this pad in front of each one of you and a pen or a pencil in front of each one of you. And we're going to talk about what you like and what you don't like about not having electricity, what foods that you think we should spend our family resources on, what foods have the nutrition to get us through difficult times, what do we need to do, who needs medicine, so forth. But very few will do it. I have never been able to get anybody to do that. I've been trying for about 8 years now to do a fire drill where you just shut off your own electricity and see how you like it. All planned. You know what's going to happen. You tell the whole family. I've offered that as an assignment. No one's done it. But what we can do is we can talk about it, and we can say, all right, so if you're going to buy powdered milk, which we have, don't just leave it in the box. Immediately transfer it to jars with gasketed lids. That could be a washed out used spaghetti sauce jar that you get from one of those $1.50 spaghetti sauce jars. Fill it all the way full, shake it, get as much air out as possible, and put it in a whole bunch of jars and only open one at a time. Keep it out of the light. It'll probably last twice as long. Another thing we've been talking about is what you've been saying about the extremely cold winter from shepherdsheart.com. I didn't know it came from there, but we know from Jet Propulsion Laboratory that this is going to be a brutal winter. So we have been preparing all summer for the animals. What about them? Well, we have 2.5 to 3x the amount of hay that we used to have because we know they're going to eat 2.5 to 3 times the amount. We have for preparing shelter for them, and for our outdoor wood furnace, we heat our house exclusively with wood. So if we don't cut wood, we freeze. It's as simple as that. And we have been cutting, stacking, hauling wood nonstop as best we can all summer in between cutting hay and taking care of the other duties. So we are in total agreement with everything that you've said, Dr. Margaret, and I'm putting an exclamation point on it. You said it succinctly, well, and from another perspective. Same import. You're absolutely right. And what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? What if the winter's just bad, not extremely bad? Well, you'll just have to eat the food. You'll just have to drink the liquids.
Too much of a problem anyway. I mean, and here comes another thing. Try a little fasting, too. Get in control of your own eating habits. I'm not going to go much more into detail, although I am seeing, I've tried it myself, I've practiced it. Most religions have some sort of fasting practice, although we can't remember what they are anymore and know what is religion anymore almost. But I have learned to not be bothered by being hungry. You know, before I always had a really good, strong, healthy, athletic body. And if I was hungry, you better let me have some food because I would get mean. You know, I loved eating. Then through life, many decades, I have learned to, for lots of different reasons, and including forcing myself to do a 1-day fast, a 2-day fast, and I got as far as a 3-day fast. I'm not a vegetarian. I do love my meat, but I eat much less meat, especially if I have to kill it myself, which I can do and have done. So part of this is not only, part of it, which we really haven't mentioned, is getting control of yourself, getting control of your life, getting control of your living space and those who live with you. And food, you know, shelter's number one. If you freeze to death, you don't need any food. So you need your shelter. Then we know the numbers of how many hours and days you can live without air, without water, without food, etc. But I can only say, get with the program. I'm tired. I don't go around saying wake up. I say, you know, be alive. Look around you. I don't even know how to say it. Tune in. What are you doing? Stop being unconscious. Get away from the television. Get away from all of the electronics. Learn to control yourself. Do some exercise. Make sure you drink 2 liters of water a day. When I'm cooking or doing some other activity, I'm also at the same time doing knee bends to strengthen my legs for some karate kicks or, you know, arm things. Work it. Be alive. Just be in the moment and prepare for the next moment. And now I want to jump to something else. And I think most people are afraid, Victor. And that's
we're going into a break. Margaret, we're going into a break, and we'll jump into that right after these few short commercial announcements. Dr. Margaret's with us. She's live in Spain. I hope you're paying close attention, and I hope you take action tonight. Class, you've got an assignment for tonight. Family meeting during dinner tonight. Parents, children, everyone in your home. Write down what you need to do to survive. Everyone contributes his or her thoughts. Then act on it. And then next week, call us and let us know what happened. I'd love to hear from you. And I will report whether we received calls or whether we didn't receive calls. Let's see how this works out. Dr. Margaret?
That's a great idea. We'll just see what happens, won't we?
Yep.
Let me jump to the harvest season. We are now in the harvest season. We really don't practice it so much in the majority of the states because we think all foods are available every day on demand. That's not going to be the way. Here I just went to one of the markets. Here there are local markets every weekend, every week. 2 weeks ago it was time for a special kind of bean. So there were 2 different markets in the month. People drive there to go. I bought a bunch. So let me say about markets and fall harvest. If you have the opportunity to go to one, a local market, a farmer's market, or I used to live in Iowa and the people would open their apple farms and et cetera and take the children out to harvest this, that, and the other. I don't know. That's not a majority activity in the States. But what you can do, even if you're going to major grocery stores, is stock up on some of the root products. Rutabagas, I don't know if people know what that is anymore. Turnips, beets, sweet potatoes, things that will last. It's time for pumpkins. Get your pumpkins and your squash, the ones that last long. Butternut squash is excellent. Spaghetti squash is excellent. You can make spaghetti out of spaghetti squash. You don't need pasta made out of flour. So there are things you can pick up. Also, it's time for nuts. Buy nuts. Store them. Keep them in the shell. Shell some. You can get your dried fruits, the raisins, the dates, the figs, thinking of those delicious dried figs we used to eat from Greece all the time. But it's a time to collect, again, on the things that are immediately available. It is that bounty of the fall harvest. Take those things, because those things I've mentioned also store very well. If we have nothing and we're out in the woods and making a fire, you can still cook your squash and your root products and various, even I'm thinking garlic, onions, things that store well, but that can be cooked in a fire. Potatoes can. I'm just not a favorite. That's not my favorite thing to store, potatoes. But do the marketing, do the harvest notion, see about what happens in the fall. What do we harvest, particularly in your area? And they can be stored. They can be cooked easily with nothing else but fire. And that's just the other section I wanted to talk about. I could tell you about the fabulous market and how wonderful it was. And there were geese and all kinds of chickens and other kinds of egg-laying animals. And there were rabbits. And there were puppy dogs. And then you had all the vegetables and the fruits and people there sharing. I mean, it was like being so far back in time. I guess it wasn't that different in the medieval times, except it's cleaner today. But it was, and your herbs and your spices, and you can get those and you can dry them and put them in your jars and have them. Now I'm just going to jump to one other thing because I think I'm about out of time. And it's about sort of a little at-home sort of kitchen home. It's not a first aid kit, but it's sort of about first aid or first necessary supplies. I just have a real little list that I'm going to run over real quickly. And it includes rubbing alcohol, ammonia, bleach, Tabasco or peppers, salt, vinegar, honey, molasses and syrups, spices and herbs, boric acid, and baking soda. And that's just the beginning list. But those can be used for food preparation. They can be used for hygiene and cleanliness. They can be used for healing wounds, certain spices and herbs, and even honey, and even peppers have medical effects that we can use. And another time we could talk about tree barks. But who knows what kind of tree is what kind of tree and which one the bark is good from. So these are just some immediate things to have available. You know, probably some mercurochrome. You can think of other things that you need, but that's a real good emergency kit that can serve for treating wounds, cleanliness, and eating, and food preparation. And I just want to say this, too. Dehydration might become an issue, and pickling, if you drink your pickle juice, it's an excellent source of electrolytes. You don't need to buy special electrolyte drinks. The acetic acid created in pickles with the vinegar is even better than citric acid in terms of rehydration. And let me say this, you can start your pickling also this weekend. As you mentioned, add some peppers to your already pickled, or you can do fast pickling, which doesn't require any cooking. You put vinegar and water and salt together, and you put your cleaned vegetables into the bottles.
Margaret,
and you stick it in.
We're out of time. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Just me today for this hour. And I thought I would try to get through some of the book that I've been working on that has not been published. It is not for sale. It's not available anywhere. And if you'd like to call, and if you'd like to air your vote for which one of your instructors was banned from Walmart, I'd love to hear that. And if you have any on-topic comments, I'd love to hear them as well. 605-477-3249, that's a telephone listen line. 866-582-9933 is the number to call and be on the air live. So I thought I'd start with just who am I? Who is Vincent Finelli? Well, and why do I prepare? Why am I concerned about preparedness? I don't like the term prepper, so I try very hard not to use that term. It started 57 years ago. I'm 67. When I was 10 years old, I was cutting the 1 acre property that we had. My dad let me cut the lawn. And I learned how to service that air-cooled lawnmower engine. And one of the things that you did was you changed the engine oil. I read how to do that, and I did it. And I learned how to replace the spark plugs and gap the spark plugs, and I learned that, you could file the spark plugs for a nice, clean, sharp edge, and electricity jumps off a clean, sharp edge better than a rounded edge. So I would make sure that the spark plugs were optimized for the best spark, the best efficiency, the most power out of that engine, the cleanest combustion, and so forth. And I learned that because we lived far from the stores, I learned early on that if I needed a quart of oil to change the oil in the engine, I might want to buy 2 quarts. That way I'd have one for next time. That way we wouldn't have to go out and buy it when I wanted to change the oil. Then I realized that maybe 6 quarts would be better. Then I realized that if I bought a case of it, it'd be even better and less expensive. So that's when it started. Fast forward to, 15 years ago or so, and I have outlaws like most of you, family members, extended family members. I love them dearly. And I told them about preparedness. I told them about power outages. I told them about extreme weather. And hey, why don't you just get some more cans of things that you like? Just buy them when they're on sale. Instead of, if it's on sale, don't get 1 can. Get 2, 3, 5, 6, 12 a case. If you like it. And if it will keep. And make sure you use it. And keep it in rotation. It's like pushing a rope. It was like herding cats. I was unsuccessful. So about, 2011, I decided that they're not paying attention to me. No one is. I heard things like, look, if it gets bad, we're just going to come to your house. I heard things like, look, if it gets bad, we'll just go out to eat. If there's no power at our place, we'll just go out to eat. I was kind of surprised when I heard that. But I've heard it more than once. How's that work? So what I did was I thought, obviously you don't believe me. I'm related. So I enlisted the help of others and created the first Get Prepared Expo. And I told my outlaws, you all come to the expo. You can stay at the house, come to the expo. It'll be really neat. You'll get to meet people you've never heard of before. Experts in various fields, medical, survival, and all aspects, off-grid. Let's see what they have to say. It was a complete failure. I had as much success getting my outlaws to prepare for themselves as I had getting them to come to the expo. Can you imagine? Not one of my family members outside of my mom, my wife, and our children came to the expo. Not one other family member. Not only that, none of my extended family even listens to USA Prepares. So I've been a complete failure in that. Now, I guess it must be hard to do. You have to find out where we are. Well, you go to a search engine, type in Vincent Finelli, and you'll find it. But I guess that's too much work. So I'm batting like 1,000 in complete failures. The meetups, the expos, maybe even the radio show. According to some of our detractors, I'm an abject failure in that too. But I'm going to continue with the radio show for a while, and then I'm going to stop. So I just thought I'd tell you who I am and a little bit about why I do it. Why I do it because I've been called to do it. And I've asked every one of our instructors, every one, except Margaret, I haven't asked her yet. Have you had some out-of-body force? We can call it God, we can call it spirituality, we can call it whatever. But the way I present it is, have you had some force from outside your body telling you to share this information, to do this? Have you? And every single one of them, every one, he said yes. Not all of our instructors are Christians. Some are Jewish. They have too. Everyone. So I think I have been called to do this, and that's why I'm doing it. But I'm not as religious as some might think Roman Catholics should be. I don't go to church. I don't want to go to church. I do talk to my God, but I do it privately. I don't make a ceremony of it. There's no ritual. I just talk to him, and I share my thoughts. I do it when I'm on the tractor. I do it during the day. I do it whenever I feel like it, whenever I think there's a need to do that, or whenever I want to. So that's just a little bit about me. Now, years ago, back in the 1970s, I had a job. My first job was in the 70s, right out of the university. That was my first job. It was my first, big job, if you want to call it that. And it was in a multi-story building, and I looked out the window, and I could see traffic. And I went into banking in the city, and I looked out the skyscraper window, and I could see the traffic one way in and out of the city. Pretty much, if I wanted to escape, it would be south on the interstate. And if it was clogged, I was toast. And I realized that. Jumped off the corporate ladder, bought a farm, bought another farm, bought another farm, bought another farm. I'm first generation farmer. I didn't have parents who were farmers, so I had to learn it on my own. And one thing farmers are really good at is keeping secrets. So if there's a better way to do it, no farmer's ever going to tell you. So you're either going to have to read about it, learn it yourself, or fail. So I've learned the hard way. I've done a lot of reading. I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of studying. And farmers are preparedness-minded. So I guess when I was 10 years old, I was in training to be a farmer because I was always thinking about what if? What if we can't get one? What if this breaks? Now what? What if there's a belt on that tractor and we can't get that belt? The tractor's useless. Or what if we can't get gasoline or the spark plug or that air cleaner or that oil or what the points condenser, whatever it was. One item could be a showstopper. And I knew that very early. So I've been preparedness-minded for a very, very long time. So that's kind of who I am and why I do it. So I decided that maybe I should pass down some of my thoughts to our children. And I started writing those down. Things that I do that most people don't do. And it spans so many subject areas. And I have not categorized them yet, but I will. So I have notebooks stacked up with, as I think of something, I grab a notebook and I add to the topics of the book. And so let's just start with the first one I thought of. Okay, so paintbrushes. How do you clean them? Well, the first thing you do is, and by the way, these are real short topics, so I'm going to go through a whole bunch of them. So when I clean a paintbrush, let's say it's latex, immediately after I'm done painting, I go to the kitchen sink and I take a clean kitchen fork, like you'd eat with. And I use the fork tines in between the bristles under warm water, and I separate the bristles in a motion that goes forward away from the handle of the paintbrush, and I clean in between the bristles. I get most of the paint off. Then I use something like Dawn or Palmolive dishwashing liquid. I'll put that on the brush. I'll use the fork. I'll work it in between the bristles. And I'll wash it a couple more times. And by doing that, I get all the paint off. And that paintbrush looks almost as good as it did when it was brand new. And I make sure I get all that soap off, or that detergent. And I take it outside. And I shake it in an arc motion to have centrifugal force fling the water away from the heel of the brush. Then I form those bristles into a small package. I make sure the bristles all go in the same direction that I want them to be when I use that brush the next time, meaning they're not all fanned out. Then I hang the brush with the bristles facing down on a clothesline, and I let it dry. And that's it. And that's what I do. So I have paintbrushes that are 40 years old, 50 years old, maybe even more. And they're as good now as they were then. Now, the secret is you got to clean it right away. If you wait, it's too long. You've wasted that brush. So let's say I'm going to paint tomorrow. I can take that paintbrush without cleaning it and use it without cleaning it. How do you do that? Well, you take that brush with some paint still on it and you wrap it with a saran wrap tightly. No air. Squeeze out the air. And then you can wrap that in aluminum foil if you want, but you don't have to. And you put it in the freezer. I'm talking about latex paint. Put it in the freezer. You do the same thing with rollers. And then, when you want to use that brush tomorrow or next week or next month, you take it out of the freezer. It's ready to go. And you haven't cleaned it. We'll be right back. Okay, we're talking about the book and the secrets, the way I live. And so, paint used to come, and still does come, in steel cans, but it also comes in plastic containers. I'm talking about latex paint. I'm talking about Rust-Oleum, oil-based paints. Well, when I open a new can of paint, a metal can with a metal lid, what I do is I take a nail or an awl and I punch a few holes in that depression between the inner and outer rim of the can. And the reason I do that is when I brush the paint against the inner rim so that I can wipe the brush, for the next application of paint on whatever I'm painting, paint seems to get in that depression on the top of the can. And as it hardens, it prevents a good reseal of that can for later use next time. So I punch a few holes, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many, I think, around the rim. And the paint that drips from the brush on the top of the can falls back into the can. And then before I reseal the can, I wipe with the brush that has had most of the paint applied, so there's not much paint left on the brush. I'm at the end of the job. And I'll wipe the brush around that rim to clean it, and then I'll hammer back that lid back on the can. Now, I've been doing that for, 40 years. It works really well. But I've never seen anybody else do that. When I hammer on a lid on a paint can, I put a cloth over it. I put a cloth over the lid, completely covering the lid. Because the next thing that happens when you hammer down that lid, the paint spatters outward. And I don't want to get paint spread on the walls or on me. So I just put a towel in, or a cloth. It could be a paper towel. Tap, 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 tap all around the can. Then I turn the can upside down to make sure there's a good seal of paint on the lid. Then I put it away. I turn it upside down, make sure that the paint covers the lid on the inside of the can, and then I turn it upright and put it away. So that's just a couple thoughts about painting with brushes. Now, let's say you're going to paint with a spray can. Well, what if you don't use the entire can? Now, you know that spray cans have a little ball bearing in the bottom of the can. And the idea is you're to shake that can, and that ball will agitate the paint with some of the carriers and uniformly mix it so you get a nice, smooth spray, right? Well, what if you're done, but you haven't used the whole can? But you don't want to throw the can away because there's paint in it. But you know that the next time you go to use the paint, the spray nozzle is going to be clogged with the paint. How do you prevent that from happening? Well, it's easy. You spray, and you're almost done, except for maybe the last little bit. Turn the can upside down. And what you're going to be doing is spraying the pickup tube in the can that's got paint in it, and the spray nozzle on top of the can. You're going to spray that clean because you're going to use the compressed gas in the can to flush or push through all the paint so there's no paint in there. And it'll blow clean. Now, you don't want to use up all the compressed gas, just the minimum. And then what happens is, the next time you go to use that spray can of paint, it works. Because there was no paint in the pickup tube or the spray nozzle to try and get hardened and clog the spray nozzle. Simple as that. Next thing, smoke detectors. Most people have smoke detectors in their house. And by the way, they're radioactive. So if you handle one, I think you should wash your hands immediately. Or wear those disposable latex rubber gloves. We use them all the time here at the farm. We buy them by the case. And by the way, and when you take them off so that the outside is now on the inside. So when you throw them away, whatever you touched is now inside the glove rather than outside the glove. But I'm going to talk about smoke detectors next. We'll be right back. Well, I'm going to just cut to the chase and tell you who was banned from Walmart. So the votes went for, let's see, in order of the number of votes, I received the most votes. Joey received the second most votes. Steve Elkins and Rick Miller were tie. Norm got votes as well. But it wasn't me. It was Joey. Joey was banned from Walmart. And hopefully we can get him to come on the air with us and tell us exactly what happened. But, yeah, and he is still at war with Walmart. Yep, he's been talking to corporate headquarters. He's getting no satisfaction. And the bottom line is there's nobody with any amount of gray matter that is commensurate with the position of manager that he's talked to. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. And there's a miserable experience that Joey had. And hopefully he'll tell us about it. If he doesn't, maybe he'll let me tell you. But it was Joey. Okay, so back to the book. Smoke detectors. Most people have smoke detectors in their home. If they don't, they should. And there's two styles. There's an optical, which looks at the cloudiness of the air and says, oh, it must be smoky, probably a fire. And then there's a radioactive type. That's what most people have, the radioactive type. So when you have a smoke detector in your house, they're usually independently operated, but they don't have to be. So if you get ones that are, like we have, that are AC powered, meaning they're powered by the alternating current in your house, 120 volts, there are three wires. There's a black wire and a white wire. That's for the electricity, 120 volts. And there's a red wire. The red wire is to daisy chain all the smoke detectors. So you connect black, white, and red wires from power to the first smoke detector, and then you continue on with that string to the next smoke detector. The red wire is a signal for the alarm so that when one goes off, they all go off. So if you have two of them, and you've used the red wire to interconnect them, the first one will go off when it senses the smoke. And it'll trigger the second one to ring the alarm too. Or if the second one senses the smoke, it'll tell the first one to ring the alarm too. And if you have 3, 4, 5, they'll all go off if you wire them that way. And of course, they have battery backups. So the plan is, if you're going to build a house, wire your smoke detectors with AC so that in case you can't hear the first one, let's say it's in the garage, and you wouldn't hear that from another part of the house, you'll certainly hear them if they all go off. So that's the smoke detector paragraph. What if you're trying to measure something that's like a piece of pipe, and you can't get to the end of it? Do you have a dial caliper? Well, you might want to buy one, and I've bought them. They're used, about $20. A lot of them are from China. Okay. None of my devices like that are electronic. So torque wrenches, they don't have screens. They're not battery powered. All of my tools are mechanical. And I want them mechanical because I don't want to have to replace the batteries. So it's just one more thing I need a battery for. I can read a dial. And you can too. So you might want to consider getting a dial caliper. And what it is, it's a measurement tool that can measure an inside or an outside diameter in thousandths of an inch. That's handy for me. I use it frequently in the automotive shop and around the farmhouse. But let's say you don't have a caliper and you want to get a quick measurement. Do you have an adjustable wrench? Well, what you can do is, let's say you're trying to figure out what is the diameter of this pipe? Well, you put the adjustable wrench around the pipe, and you turn that little screw so that it fits snugly, and then you take the adjustable wrench off the piece of pipe, and then you take a measure, tape measure, ruler, and you measure how far the adjustable wrench is open. That's a quick caliper. Just take a turkey baster type device to withdraw brake fluid or antifreeze, from vehicles. Works great. Now, I would not use it for turkey basting again, but I would, mark it, and I would write to automotive use only, and make sure you clean it when you're done, and then it'll last a long time. Sometimes that turkey baster thing is not long enough to withdraw the fluid. So I'll add a piece of flexible rubber hose or plastic hose to the end of it. That's the way I do it. One more thing, and we'll get to Robert in Kansas. Antifreeze. It's called antifreeze in the north. It's called coolant in the south. So if you have coolant in your vehicle, and we're expecting an extremely cold winter, you can buy a squeeze bulb type antifreeze tester. Less than $10. Probably more like $5 or $6. You can get that at the Chinese factory outlet. And they have a little floating needle in there. It's on a pivot. And it will indicate the temperature at which your antifreeze will freeze. It will also indicate the temperature at which your antifreeze will boil. So you have coolant and boil protection with antifreeze. Typically, what I like to do is I like to have a 50-50 mixture with the full-strength antifreeze mixed with distilled water. That's what I do. So you're going to want to know before winter what the temperature at which your coolant or antifreeze will protect you to. And make sure you go way below what you expect. So if you're expecting minus 10, I think minus 35 is where I'd want to be. Okay? And make sure you get the right antifreeze, because there's Asian formula, there's European formula, there's the green formula for pre-1984 and earlier. Then there's the universal, which you can top off, but you can't use for everything. You can just add it to most antifreeze. Antifreeze is now really complicated. And maybe I should do a show on how to select antifreeze. I mean, it is very complicated, and you don't want to mix them. And if you get the wrong antifreeze, you will destroy your radiator. A couple $100 for the part. Worse than that, if you have the wrong antifreeze, or that if Junior at Walmart puts the wrong antifreeze in your vehicle, and you have a European vehicle like a Mercedes, and it eats the if it eats the transmission cooler built into your radiator, then the pressure of your radiator will push coolant into antifreeze into your transmission, and it will be destroyed in a very short time, and you won't even know what's happening. And it'll be so expensive, you'll probably get rid of the whole car. So it's really important that you change the antifreeze at the recommended interval and use the correct antifreeze. Robert in Kansas, welcome.
Hey, Vincent, so what do I win?
You win an all-expense-paid subscription to USA Prepares for as long as we're on the air from the internet source of your choice.
Oh, I don't get a tour of the farm?
You know, Robert, I'm not doing that anymore. I am so discouraged with my complete and abject failures that I don't even know if I want to do radio anymore. I really mean that. I can't get people to prepare. I can't get people to read. I can't even get people to listen when I talk to them in person about things that they need to take care of for their own safety, well-being. I mean, I can't even get people to pay attention when I talk about, listen, let me tell you how to put air in your tires and why you should have them at this particular amount of inflation pressure, and why you need to check your tires when they're not in the sun and while they're cool and you haven't driven the vehicle for a few hours. I can't get them to pay attention to that. I can't get them to pay attention to, these engines consume oil, and if you run low on oil, oil is the main number one heat transfer agent within your engine. And if you don't have enough oil, your engine will run hot and it will have a shorter life expectancy. I can't get people to listen long enough for me to say that. I'm pretty discouraged.
I understand that.
I don't do farm tours. I've been in contact with an author, and he's writing a book. And he's been doing research. He's from one of the big universities. He's doing a book on preparedness. And I asked him, after each one of these half-hour or one-hour phone calls, that I'm tutoring him on how to consider writing this book and the content. He learns more from me than he does in 10 times the amount of time with all the other people who are in the preparedness mindset. He learns faster, more, and things that he's never even thought about. Things that they don't even know about. I'm talking about, we'll call them preppers. I can't believe it. There's so few people who understand what's happening. Let me just give you one quick example. So we have an outdoor wood furnace. And if we heat with wood, in which we do, there are several things that are absolutely critical for that system to work. One of them is a circulator pump. If that circulator pump fails, we have no heat. Would I put our family in a position to let that happen? Absolutely not. Would I have a spare? Uh-huh. Would I have a spare for the spare? Uh-huh. Would I have a spare for the spare for the spare? Uh-huh. Would I have a spare for the spare for the spare for the spare? Uh-huh. Of course. Because I can buy a spare pump for the price of taking the family out to eat, less than the price of taking the family out to eat to the Olive Garden. So, listen, let's go to the Olive Garden. No, forget that. We're going to buy a pump instead. Robert, I'm the beneficiary of lots of advice and counsel, unsolicited, from listeners. Now, a listener is someone who doesn't do anything. Students, they actually do something, and instructors, and they do something. Okay, so I pay very little attention to listeners because that's what they do. It's like a sports fan. Okay, they just kind of watch. Well, I've gotten emails. I don't pay attention to emails when I'm on the air. I think it's my responsibility to pay attention to what the broadcast is about rather than read emails. So I'm not going to multitask, and I'm not going to waste those cycles reading emails. So I've gotten emails that I found out after the broadcast that say things like, I tune out when you talk about farming, farm equipment, and automotive tips. I also get other counselors that says, I love it when you talk about farming and automotive tips. Then I get comments like, do you know what's happening in the economy? Why aren't you talking about that? Of course I know what's happening in the economy. How many times can I talk about it? How many times can I say what people need to do? I've been doing this for 8 years. We are not the mainstream media. We don't talk about the politics as much as they do. We talk about what you need to do and why you need to do it. And Robert, I didn't realize we were related, but I guess we are, because your family and my outlaws must talk to each other or something. And I know you love them, and I know I love them. But, you know, it's getting to be universal, and we are considered a bunch of wackos. And I'm sorry to say it, I think it's backwards. I think we're right.
Me too,
I really
Vincent.
believe we're right.
I just wanted to say that, you know, my uncle, my mom, they're your age. They're not millennials. They're grown folks, and they could see no value in what I did. They really couldn't. Yeah, I was amazed. Terrible.
I was invited to a wedding.
So.
Yep. I was invited to a wedding, and there was a suggestion on a web page on the internet, like that said, you know, if you'd like to, we don't need a gift, but if you'd like to, if you would like to contribute toward our honeymoon, you can buy travel and just click here for $75. Or if you would like to buy alcoholic beverages, click here. If you would like to pay for carbon offsets, you can click here. If you would like to pay for entertainment, you can click here. And none of those choices was suitable for me and Mrs. Finelli. Not one. So what we did was we bought something that was way more expensive. It was a 10-ounce bar of silver. One bar of silver, 999, and with an apology. And we said, we're sorry that we're giving you this instead of what you wanted, because we think that there might be a time that you might need this. And then I talked with the father of the family that invited us, and I explained that that's why I did it, because I thought that in the long run this was a way better way to go. But your daughter might not understand this. She might think, oh, what am I going to do with this? I don't know. I believe that young people are looking at now as compared to the future, the way I looked at it when I was their age. It's quite refreshing, Robert, to hear your call, because I'm extremely frustrated, and I'm glad to see that I'm in good company.
You are, Vince. You're in great company, and you are right, and they are wrong. But that's the way they've built society. They've built society for these people to be how they're being, and they don't want people to take their lives in control, like to be in control of their own destiny. And they, you know, so that if something does happen, we are vulnerable. That's how they want us to be. You know, short-sighted, not looking at the long term, and like you say, and I think in the past, people had to be more long-term minded because we got here somehow, you know, and now, like you say, but also, Vince, my family, they're grown, you know, these are my elders, and they're all about right now too, I think, Vince. They don't seem to really look that far ahead either, so it's generational problem.
Okay, Robert,
here.
let me ask you a quick question. We're running out of time. So it gets bad, grid's down, power's out. Are they going to call you?
Well, they couldn't call me then, right? I mean, I guess they might, but
What I mean is, are they going to call on you?
They
Are they going to ask you for help?
For protection. Yeah, they would.
So, and it's so frustrating. It is so frustrating because all they have to do, literally, is turn off the lights, not use the refrigerator and the water for 3 hours tonight, starting at 6 o'clock. Shut off the breakers, except for emergency devices, medical. Shut off the breakers for 3 hours from 6 to 9 p.m. and see how they like it. Write down in the dark what they don't like. Maybe have a few candles. Maybe try to find that flashlight with the dead batteries. Write down what they don't like, and then make sure they have those things that they missed. Robert, you're absolutely right. Thank you for calling in.